Okay, what if Wonder Woman grew up in hell? That seems like that could be pretty cool. And what if she was a witch? All right. Okay. And what if she was really into BDSM? Wait, what? Okay, so we're here to talk about everything we know about Absolute Wonder Woman. But before we get into the details and all the weird, probably unintentional metaphors, I want to say that I think that this really could be the best absolute story of the Trinity. You got Batman, where it sounds like they probably are going to be straying a little bit too far from who Batman really is. Doesn't mean it won't be a good story, but it's just not really going to be a Batman story. The Superman story, I feel like, sounds like it's fairly close to who we think of Superman as being, other than that one big change that he doesn't grow up on Earth. But that one kind of just seems like a bummer. I mean, just looking at it makes me depressed. But Absolute Wonder Woman really seems like it could be a good story in terms of good writing. It sounds like the writer, Kelly Thompson, really understood the assignment. And it just seems like it's going to be an interesting story. I mean, come on, it's a hell princess. And of course, as always, remember these aren't canon, so we don't have to be too worried about them destroying the characters we know and love. It's really more just a question of, do we want to spend our time and money on these stories, or were we just going to wait around for the next thing? Or stick with the all-in stories, which will take place in the main continuity. Now for this story, Absolute Wonder Woman, the tagline is, without the island paradise, without the sisterhood that shaped her, without a mission of peace, what's left is the absolute Amazon. It's funny, in a way, these absolute stories kind of seems like the gist of them is, without every identifying feature of a superhero, what's left is the absolute version of that superhero. Which doesn't seem quite right to me. When I think absolute, I think like the pinnacle, like the number one version, the top version, the most perfect version, not this stripped down version. And that's not to say anything about anything other than just the fact that I think absolute was probably not the best name for it. It seems a little off. These versions of the stories, they're designed, at least they should be, to strip the character down to their absolute essence, just the core of who they are. And the dictionary really makes absolute seem like a bad choice. It says absolute means not qualified or diminished in any way. And diminishing definitely seems to be the point of these books, for better or worse. But Kelly Thompson really gets the idea. She gets the exercise here. And, she's an Eisner-winning writer. She's the real deal. So it won't be a big surprise if she does a great job. She understands that to really make it work, you've got to look at it as an exercise and really getting to the core, the root of who these characters are. And she specifically said that it's really tough to do this kind of thing because you're trying to figure out how can you put the superhero in a new situation? How can you put a fresh spin on the character without taking away anything that seems really important? So at least she's thinking about, okay, how much can I do before this isn't Wonder Woman anymore? And maybe the other writers did that. I assume that they did. I think that even if some of them seem to be failing at it, surely they at least talked about that being the point of these comics. So yeah, Thompson said you have to preserve the center. And if you don't, it just doesn't feel right anymore. It doesn't feel like Diana. It's not Wonder Woman anymore. But she seems to have identified Wonder Woman's core. She says that no matter what you try to do to her, there's always this compassionate core. The way she put it was this compassionate, badass person who's only seeking to do good and make the world better. That sounds pretty close to me. Sounds like a good starting point. So once she identified that central element, Thompson then goes and says, okay, well, how can we really highlight that? How can we throw that in high relief? It's definitely a big change. She moves her into hell. It's not exactly like you might think. I know that a lot of people are concerned that it's like, oh, she's not grown up on Themyscira. How is she going to be Wonder Woman? She's not an Amazon anymore. But she is an Amazon. The whole backstory that we don't know the exact specifics of yet is Apollo exiled her to hell. You're not even allowed to say the word Amazon in relation to her. So Themyscira is still around. The Amazons are still around. And Thompson even hinted that Wonder Woman may be wanting to find them or trying to look for them. But she grows up in hell, and down there in hell, she learns witchcraft. And she grows up with the adopted mother or wicked stepmother, Circe. An old familiar face. So it'll be interesting to see how that works and whether she's written to be more of a caring character instead of an antagonist, or if she is still an antagonist and it's more a story of Diana breaking free from that influence. Now, the new look is definitely better than Sad Boy Superman. I think in some ways it's better than Thick Boy Batman, but there are some cool things. I mean, big old jacked Batman is cool, especially since they explain how he could get away with that. He couldn't be the only enormous bodybuilding billionaire without people figuring out who he is. But for Diana, I guess she didn't have the Amazons doing her wardrobe anymore, so she kind of pieces together a bunch of different things. She's still got sort of a Wonder Woman sort of breastplate, but everything's kind of pieced together outside of that. I mean, honestly, the best part about it is there's nothing that really stands out and makes you say, gee, that's stupid. Like you do when you see Absolute Superman's hair or Absolute Batman's stupid chest axe logo, which somebody in the comments of the last video made a great point. The Batman logo already looked like an axe. I don't know if maybe physically speaking, like, you know, maybe that's those sharp edges and curves were gonna, like, they think those would have been more dangerous or something. But I mean, come on, you're putting a big plate of metal on the guy already. We've got some issues in terms of being realistic. Anyway, Hecate will be there as well, or at least her influence will somehow be there. This Diana, she's got tattoos, and one of them on her shoulder here, or maybe it's the other shoulder, it's actually Hecate's symbol. So I don't know if these tattoos are like magic runes or what, but I'm hoping they're magic runes because that'd be pretty cool, you know, giving her some kind of cool powers or something. And then, of course, you've probably seen she's got Cloud's Buster sword. Really makes me think of Guts from Berserk. Looks like his cool sword, and I like that. It looks cool. And she pulls it out of a little pouch, apparently. She can put it in a little sack. And like any biologically accurate sword, it can get very small or get very big. Apparently, it could even get bigger than we've seen in some of the art so far. Thompson says the story is organically feminist, but apparently she felt there was a need for her main character to have a sword that can achieve varying levels of flaccidity. And then she's got what's called the Red Nemesis Lasso. The lasso truth is out there somewhere, and maybe it'll make an appearance, maybe it won't. But Wonder Woman has the Red Nemesis Lasso, which can inflict pain, and it sounds like that's maybe its main purpose. And you know, the whole lasso of truth thing came about because William Moulton Marston, the guy who invented Wonder Woman, had a thing for bondage. And like, it wasn't just a kink for him. Apparently, he seemed to think it was some really philosophical notion. So Marston's into bondage. Now, with all that dark side energy, it moves into full-on sadomasochism. And lastly, Absolute Wonder Woman rides around on this skeletal Pegasus. So she's riding around on a flying bag of bones. I'm pretty sure there's a joke in there somewhere. So if someone could please find it for me, I would appreciate it. All kidding aside, seems like a good story to me. A hell princess with dark magic cutting off the heads of demons with an enormous sword seems to have potential, right? As always, let me know what you think, because that's all I really care about. I know what DC thinks. They think it's great, but I think they're a little biased.